Hello and welcome back to the Bellicose Nation. Today, we're going to break down what happened in the 2012 presidential election, and I'm going to tell you what the future holds. Now, of course, President Obama, he won his bid for re-election. How did it happen? And that's what I'm here for. Now, I don't relish being the voice of doom and gloom, believe me, but the average American who believes in limited government has been in denial for decades now. And that is because the topic of race is such a sensitive subject in this country, at least for whites. But now, in this election, all across America, those on the right are beginning to realize the possibility that we're coming to the end of the line where a GOP candidate is going to get into the White House. And what's bringing that about? Well, one of the reasons clearly is immigration. So let's talk about immigration. But before I do, I want to make it clear, while it's true immigration from 1965 forward has and will forever change the course this country is on, the immigrant is not to blame. I don't want to gin up a bunch of hostility towards these folks who have come over here. They've simply come here looking for opportunity and a better life and the security that our government programs and our nation offers them. They're not to blame. It's our fault. But you know, the fact is, when they come here, they bring not only a nice variety of food, but they also bring a much greater inclination towards bigger government. The voting trends could not be more stark if you just look at them. While white America is split on what the role of government should be, minorities are clearly for more big government. And they are also where the population growth is. In fact, we are not only have that situation, but we are importing 1 million a year into the country, mostly from third world countries. California. What happened there is really our nation's future and the model for what's ahead. Consider this, California was always kind of a 50-50 state politically. But that state did send Richard Nixon to the White House 2 times. It voted for Ronald Reagan as governor 2 times. It elected Ronald Reagan to the White House for 2 terms. But today, there is no chance they will ever vote for anything other than a Democrat in the presidential election. Why is that? Mass immigration. Listen to this. In the last 2 decades, the census study shows almost 2 million people left California. They bailed out. Yet the state actually grew in population. How is that? Mass immigration. And now, any Democrat running for president has a guaranteed 55 electoral votes from California. You know, if all social trends were stable, mass immigration alone would guarantee the end of the party of limited government. In other words, it's nearly over, folks. Where the left failed at winning in the arena of ideas, they succeeded by importing voters who want what they want. And interestingly enough, it didn't happen without the help of those on the right. Because starting from the Immigration Act of 1965 and every increase in the immigration quotas since, roughly 1 million a year now we bring in, the GOP has gone along with it, even aided in it. Even in this last campaign, with unemployment killing our workers, what did Mitt Romney proclaim during the debates? He said we need more legal immigration. We need to speed up the immigration process. You know, you got half of the GOP is for even granting citizenship or a pathway to citizenship to the millions of illegals who've drifted into this country. It's simply right-wing suicide is all it is. And I think people now are starting to wake up and see that. Now let's take a look and see how this works, okay? And I'll show you the stark difference is of why these elections are now going to be out of our hands more and more on the national stage as far as the presidency. Okay, African Americans. Now everybody knows African Americans are overwhelmingly loyal to Democrats. Overwhelmingly. Unreal, actually. And black females are at the highest rate. In this last race, they voted for the Democrats 9-1. They voted 9-1 for the party of big government. Hispanics, now the largest minority, they vote 2 times for a Democrat for every 1 time they vote for somebody in the GOP. Asians, last year, more Asians immigrated into this country than any other group. And how do they vote? In this election, for every 4 Asians, 3 went for Obama. 1 went for Mitt. Now, as states become dominated by minorities, these electoral votes in that state will go safely into the Democrats' pocket, and the GOP is left trying to pick up all these little small states with small electoral votes. And this is why it's going to be impossible. Now, I have focused on the GOP. What about the Ron Paul crowd? How do they play in this? Well, let me tell you something. This trend against limited government is going to be double rejection for you guys, because the Ron Paul crowd is even more serious about limited government than the GOP, which the GOP half the time is nothing but lip service. I don't think people realize how close that we are to it being over as far as the right wing getting the White House. I don't think people realize, but let me give you a little example. Let's take Texas and Florida. If Texas and Florida were to flip and go solidly Democratic, it's over. We're done. Well, let's see how far they are from that. Texas has the second largest amount of electoral votes. I think it's like 38. And it has pretty much consistently been for Republicans over these years. But now the white population in Texas is down to 48%, and the birth rate for whites is down to 35%. But check this out. Between the years 2000 and 2010, the total population of Texas grew by 20%, but Hispanics grew by 65%, whereas non-white Hispanics, their rate, whites only grew 4.2%, while Hispanics grew 65% in 10 years. Now, how much longer will it be until Texas, with its 38 electoral votes, are safe in the pocket of the left? And then it is mathematically over, my friends. Now, while many whine about the two-party political system, I mean, you hear this all the time. I got a newsflash for you. We are heading towards a one-party national system on the national level, because you're going to see one party, the Democrat Party, and I imagine the right will morph into a Democrat light party, trying to be the reasonable big government party. Well, basically, you say they're that already. But, really and truly, when the history is written on all this, it'll boil down to one thing. Those on the right were too cowardly to stand up and stop all this mass immigration. They were too cowardly to stand up and say, hey, immigration policy should serve the interest of our nation, not the world's. And number 2, we intend to maintain a racial balance that we've historically had in this country, not change it. And they didn't do that. And now I believe that we're going to see a radical change within the next decade. It's going to really be over. And, things, the unintended consequences always happen. So I'm sure there are going to be other things in play. So if you guys can think of any factors which might suggest a different path, share it with me. Post it down. I want to read about it. Because sometimes there's things you don't think about, but really and truly, I can't see any way around the massing of immigrants and of minorities, and minorities specifically vote for big government. So we're just headed for big government. I don't know how you get around that. Well, folks, listen, I appreciate you listening, and this has been the Bellicose Nation.